This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by Alfred Music. You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. It's Tim Topham here and welcome back to the Topcast. It's great to be spending a little bit of time with you again this week. I hope things went well over the weekend and you're having a great time with your teaching and everything that's going on in our busy lives. Today, we get to meet our Top Music Sheets composer for this month, and it's the amazing Susan Staples-Bell, whose name has been popping up more and more and more in the last few years. And we get to find out a little bit more about why that might be happening shortly. But it's so great to be able to share this with everybody. And I love these collections that we're able to provide for our members as well. Now, of course, if you aren't yet a member, then please come and join us. You can get a membership for just $10 a month where you get a pack of sheet music like the one that I'm talking about today from Susan Staples-Bell, plus our games collection, plus our monthly magazine, and access to our entire webinar back catalogue, which is 90 plus videos of training on just about every single element of pedagogy and business that you could possibly think of. All of that for just $10 a month over at topmusicpro.com. Susan Staples-Bell is equal part composer and instructor, with her main focus being on creating exciting sheet music and educational resources for piano teachers and their students. She loves to draw students in with some fun music, then intrigue them when they discover there's really lots more learning here than meets the eye. Susan has served the community for over 30 years in various positions: church musician, middle school band director, and piano instructor. For the last decade, her studio has been in San Antonio, Texas, with each of these positions giving her a unique experience that shapes the music she writes. Susan, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the show. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's great to meet you. I have heard so much about you, and everyone on our team's been talking about you and saying how we've had to get you in for a collection of Top Music Sheets. So I'm just stoked that we've been able to make this happen. And yes, you are our Top Music Sheets composer for this month. So thank you very much for getting involved.
Thank you.
I actually got a chance to play through the music today, hot off the press from Albert, and the variety is fantastic. So we've got early elementary through to intermediate. I love that there's two pieces which aren't standard sheet music. We've got a lead sheet and a how to teach and play it. And we've got a completely non-notated compositional activity in there too, which is just awesome. And I love some of the pieces. We'll talk about some of them later. Black Knight's Ride, I thought, with the hand crossing and the story that you can feel in there, I thought that was great. And Ice Crystals was just atmospheric. I loved playing it. So thank you so much again. It's just wonderful. I know that our teachers and members are going to just absolutely love sharing it. So let's talk a little bit about your composing work, because I'd love to know a bit more about you, because your name's been popping up a lot recently, more so than it has in the past. So I think you might be doing something a bit different. So is composing full-time for you at the moment? And what's the mix for you at the moment between teaching and composing?
Yes, it's been my lifelong dream to publish. I've been writing forever, and I have 25 students, so I teach 4 days a week in the afternoons. I'm a pianist at church, so I have an 11 o'clock service, and I have Wednesday night choir practice. So I do all those things, but every other waking moment I spend on composing and website, because I did the website myself, I do the marketing myself, I do everything. So that's pretty much a 24/7 job right there.
That's huge. 24 students plus all of this work you're doing. Credit to you, because that's amazing. But I think that also comes through in the pedagogical foundation, the background of the music. You can tell this has been created to teach things, and it's really sound, your approach, I think. And obviously you've got huge experience too. So, and it was great because the lead sheet is a hymn. So I thought you might be a worship musician as well.
Yes. The lead sheet's actually from my Christmas book. I have 20 different Christmas carols. that's been huge, really popular. It's a really nice format. One page information teaches you how to play it, and then I give you the lead sheet with the chords and everything. And as the book progresses, it gives lots of different ways to arrange it, and different ways to use the chord. But yeah, I've been a church musician my whole life, and I've been teaching for over 30 years. So I'm old, but I love it. It's great.
Well, I started when I was 11. So I started piano at 8. By the time I was 11, I started organ lessons in church. I loved and have always loved hymns. And I think I learnt to become a great sight reader and certainly a good accompanist by playing hymns. So that was why I was really pleased to see that. And it's great to hear that, yes, if teachers who have a look at this collection enjoy those, then go and explore the rest of Susan's collection, because what a great way to learn for students. I think it's so, so important. So I'm interested a little bit in your childhood lessons as well. Can you take us back? Were they pretty traditional or were they pretty creative?
Yeah, interesting. I started when I was 6. I think my parents were just looking for what are the activities little girls ought to do. I was in ballet lessons. I was in Girl Scouts, and my cousin had a piano, so I got to have piano. I got her old piano. She got a new one. I got piano lessons. I actually rode horses till I was about 25. So I've done a lot of different things. But yeah, piano lessons with the little old lady down the street, and it was fine. She used to hit my hands with a ruler when I messed up.
Oh, no.
But when I got into about 6th grade, I was getting really bored with her. And so my parents got me lessons with a crusty old jazz musician. And opened my eyes. I mean, improvisation chords, talking about scales and letters instead of notating on the staff. I mean, I know how to notate, obviously, but I love to think in letters. And so he just showed me lots and lots of different ways to put things together. He taught me songs I wrote. I'd never done that before, and hugely impacted the rest of my life. I didn't really realize it at the time. I was very, very shy. And so that was just really eye-opening. And then I got to band in junior high, 7th grade. I was clarinet player. And my band director, everything started to make sense then. I mean, I knew how to read music. I knew how to do everything. All I had to do was learn to play the clarinet. I was drum major. I was in the jazz band playing piano. I mean, it was just, I love music. I mean, it all came together, and I just loved it. So, I mean, I just went on from there.
I had the same experience where I was in the choir and the orchestra, and I played drums and I did timpani and all of and you have this great experience of lots of different styles of music, types of music, roles. I think it's such a great way to expand a student's horizons and experience.
I do. And I always encourage my piano students when they get to be about that age. I say, are you going to be an orchestra, band, choir? What are you going to do? And they say, well, band is big in Texas. So most of my students, when they get to junior high school, they're in band. And so I go to their concerts, and I was actually a band director. After I graduated high school, I have a music education degree. It was all level music. And I was a band director later in a middle school band. I've
conducted those as well. Trust me, I know what it's like.
They said, "Oh, you play the piano, you can teach the choir." So I had 2 classes of choir, and you're a clarinet player. So I was the assistant band, second band director. And then, you play piano, jazz piano. So you start a jazz band after school. And, I just did everything I could do for 3 years. And then I was so burned out. But my husband was in the Navy. He says, "Time to move." I went, "Okay."
Oh, wow.
So we lived all over the world, but I've always been a piano teacher, and I've always been a church musician, an organist, a pianist, praise band pianist, a choir director, handbell director. Just everywhere we moved, every 3 years, I just took a different music position.
And I think you can hear in your music, all of that experience comes together and comes through in your compositions. So I think it's been a great thing to do, even though I can imagine moving all the time. That would have been challenging at times.
Yeah, we have to start over every time you move, but that's okay for me. I mean, I'll walk in and say, "What do you need?" We actually lived in Japan for 3 years, and my husband went ahead, and they all said, "What do your wife do? What does your wife do?" And he said, "Well, she's a piano teacher." Oh, so I had 30 students before I even arrived.
Oh, wow!
Just because there's not that many people on base that teach piano, and it was hard to go off in the economy in Japan. We don't speak Japanese, whatever. So. Yeah, it was every place had a new opportunity. So I really enjoyed that.
Wow, amazing. So talk about, well, let me know about your composing then. So you obviously had this incredible experience at school and then as a younger teacher. When did you first start adding compositions? Because I assume you did it for your students at first.
Well, I did. Actually, I started in high school. I had friends, in band, and we wanted to play songs together, pop tunes and stuff. So we had a clarinet and we had a flute and a trombone, whatever. I started on paper writing different little arrangements for us to play. And I thought, well, that's really fun. So I went to get my music education degree. And actually, in my senior recital, I had my first real original composition for piano. I played in my recital because my teacher let me, and I was like, oh, this is much more fun. So I left there and I went and got a composition degree. And so I was already writing back before computers. So everything, pen, paper, and cut, paste, literally cutting up the music. And so I've been composing for a long time. And as life went on, wherever we were, I've written a lot of handbell music because we were in Japan and I couldn't just go out to the store and get handbell music. So I wrote it.
Is handbell playing, I mean, that's very rare over here. I've never experienced it. Is it something that goes along with the worship music?
Church. Yeah. It's a church thing. Yeah. It's nice. We'll have 2-octave, 3-octave sets. We have a handbell choir in the church where I am now. I played in it before I started being full-time pianist. So now I'm their sub.
Yeah. It's not something I've ever seen over here.
No, it's not in schools very often either, but yeah, it's in churches mostly. It's fairly popular, So yeah, I've written for jazz band, concert band. I've written for a lot of things. But then when I got here, we retired in 2012. We were in Virginia, and I said, that's it. I want to go home to Texas. And so back in Texas, as I'm have a little bit more time on my hands, I started writing more for students. And they'd say, oh, I just love this, Miss Bell. What can we do? And I'll write it down for you, And so that's kind of how I got started,
Yeah, that's great. And were you thinking when you were writing those pieces, were you thinking, I know this child likes this sound, this atmospheric thing, or were you thinking, I need to help them understand slurs or phrasing or pedal, and I'm going to write a piece for that?
Yeah, I do that more now that I'm really actively thinking about what skills should students be learning. When I first started writing for students, it was more like, how can I make something really flashy that they'll sound impressive, but it's not really that hard? So rock and blues was one of the first things I wrote for a student. I was actually like in 2017, and it didn't make the collection. But it was really, I know, no, that one didn't, I mean, it was hard to pick just a few to put in there. But rock and blues is something I totally made up on the fly. Some kid came in and said, I love Jerry Lee Lewis. I said, oh, something like this. I just ripped it out. They went, oh, can I play it? I said, well, I just made it up. Come back next week. I'll have it written down for you. It's just a simple little 12-bar blues boogie, But yeah, and kids got excited and I started writing more. But I don't even remember what the question was now. But
no, yeah, it was about getting started and whether you think pedagogically or just atmospherically or what. And I think there's an element of both in music. I mean, because they are 100% engaging. Like the students will be absorbed by them. The sounds are modern and the harmonies, they'll get the harmonies, I think. But they also have, they're just beautifully written. They sit under the hands well. I just think they're so much fun. I was just having a look through Set Sail as well. I loved, that kind of a sea shanty kind of feel in 6/8 as well. And that one, I think that was a little bit unusual too because of the key you've written it in.
Yeah, it's B-flat Dorian. And Albert and I actually had a discussion about this because he really thought it should have the 5 flats. And I said, are you sure that's going to, scare kids off? But I have a song called Funky Gecko, and it's the same thing. It's a B-flat Dorian, but I've only got, is that right? It's only got 4 flats. 5, it doesn't matter. And everybody who looks at it says, what key is this in? And I'm like, well, what's the first note? B flat, And so that's a clue. I didn't want to give you too much information to get you confused. If I'm not using the G flat, I didn't put it in the key signature, Yeah, I just get sounds, I get ideas, and I just go with it. And then I try to figure out how to write it down. And how's that going to make sense to a kid, you know?
Do you have any mentors that helped you with your composing, particularly when you were starting? So not influence as much as people that helped you.
I think when I was studying music composition at UT Austin, Rick Lawn was one of my teachers. He actually taught me jazz writing, and I wrote for jazz ensemble with him. And he talked about how he loved that I would write very linearly. He says, "You're like Bach, but not." It's lots of lines that kind of converge, and then they line up and they make these beautiful moments. I like melody. I like to think in lines. I know my chords and I know my harmonies and stuff, and I do stack things eventually, but sometimes. But I love how things pass in the night and kind of line up and make beautiful moments. So Rick Lawn was really important in that. Also, here in San Antonio, Mark Rogers, I was in the Heart of Texas concert band playing clarinet and piano for a while when I first moved here. And Mark Rogers was in charge of publishing at Southern Music Company for 25 years. And so I wrote for the band, and then he would give me instructions like, in finale, how engraving. That was really helpful. And for a long time, I would write to him and say, "What is this song? I just got this cool idea." And he says, "Oh, it's a tango." And I went, "Oh, okay."
I've learned so much from Albert about engraving. I had no idea. So Albert is our publisher of these collections and the engraver and the editor. I mean, he does everything. He's amazing. He has really made me realize the importance and the skill and the art of engraving. It's a real art, isn't it?
It's beyond me. He said actually my stuff was in pretty good shape when he got it. Forget English. I'm bad at spelling and I knew none of that. I said, "Whatever you say, 12 o'clock, fix it, whatever. That's great." When I look at a piece of music, I do it by eye, important to me how many measures are in a line, if it looks right to a kid, my students, I'm always thinking about how it looks and what fingers they're going to need. So I am self-taught in engraving. It looks good, but boy, he made it look amazing.
Yeah, he really does. He has a true gift for it. It's amazing. And he works incredibly hard too. So tell me about your publishing. Do you self-publish or have you been published?
So I started at Sheet Music Plus in the Arrange Me program in October of 2019. So I'm still fairly new at all of this. I did that till March of 2022, and they went through some restructuring at Arrange Me and doing some different things. And so I said, I'm going to go ahead and open my own website. So that's when it's only 2.5 years old. That's when I started doing my thing at my own, so self-published, I guess. I do everything myself and I'm learning as I go, but it's hugely exciting and interesting. And I meet so many wonderful people because of it. It's just the coolest thing ever.
I get the sense that you enjoy the business side as well in the marketing. So for other composer or budding composer teachers out there, how have you in the last 2 years got your name out there? Because it's just sudden, you've obviously been composing forever and you're very well known, but you've just come to light more strongly recently. I wonder if you know what that's been attributed to.
No. Actually, a Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is a struggle for me, but I try. I feel like I'm a grassroots movement person. I've worked really hard on Facebook to make connections with teachers. I reach out to them and I write them notes and I say, if you were looking for something for music, if you could reach for anything, what would you like? And so I just last week wrote a collection called Keys to the Wild West. In 5 days, I put together 12 songs for Easy Elementary. And I wrote the songs. Writing the songs is easy. I can get that done. But then editing, and then, she says, "Well, I want teacher duets." So, okay, fine. So I had to go back, and for 6 of them, I wrote teacher duets. But that's the theme of her studio. And I'm not sure that everybody's going to want that theme. I'm a Texas girl, so I got out my old cowboy hat and I had my boots out and I sang. And they're cute little songs. Like one of them's called "Where's My Hat?" And I'm just trying to think.
Something about boots, surely.
Yeah, got my boots and my spurs. Jingle, 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 got my rope and my reins. Jingle, 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 got my horse and my saddle, got my gloves and my chaps. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Wait, what? Where's my hat?
Ah, I love it. What a fun tune.
Yeah, I did the words, I did the melody, I did everything. And then I had to, okay, jingle, jangle, kind of a hop along, boom, 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 for the teacher duet.
I can hear that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So coming up with the theme, she gave me the theme, and then looking through all the potential titles. Once I have a theme or an idea of a title, I can musically describe it.
Alfred Music's piano resources have long been favourites of piano teachers and students alike, with a vast catalogue of popular methods, supplemental repertoire, masterworks, pop and more. This fall, Alfred Music is excited to continue its legacy of producing first-class piano resources with the release of 4 brand new books. For video game-loving students, Sagaland, video game-inspired solos by Elizabeth Swift for intermediate students that is sure to spark the imagination and excite all of your students. Sand Paintings, 16 piano pieces by the amazing Connor Chi, inspired by traditional Navajo sand paintings. Take the Stage, recital showstoppers for young beginners by Angela Marshall, and Rare Recital Treasures, an anthology of lesser-known teaching pieces selected and edited by Ingrid Clarfield and Kevin Chance. Exclusively for Topcast listeners, go to alfred.com/podcast and use the code TOPMUSIC at checkout to save 30% on these titles and everything else at alfred.com. Go check it out. So sorry, I missed it. Was that a commission that a teacher asked you for her studio to create?
More or less, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So is that something you'll publish generally openly as well?
Eventually? I did. Yeah. I already did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So what I have a few folks that follow me on my website, and I send them an email every week. And I ask them, I said, if you give me an idea for a collection, I'll give it to you for free.
Oh, wow. Great.
And so it motivates people to send me suggestions. They say, oh, I'd love to have that. So I've done several. Somebody asked 2 years ago for a Halloween, last year. Gosh, time goes by. Halloween, I did.
It'll be Halloween again soon, Susan.
I know. I'm going to reuse that collection. Frightfully fun features for fall. I like alliteration. So that's 10 little elementary pieces. Yeah, I've got 3 commissions right now for duets for TMTA next year, Texas Music. It's a big deal. They bring students and they play duets on stage, and I had 3 of them played this past year. One of them was Sweetwater Junction. That's a little duet about a train song, and the kids wore like 1800s clothes, and they had a little suitcase because they were going on a train ride. They blew a train whistle. It was cute.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. The sense of passion and fun and enjoyment that comes out of you, even just listening to you now, I can only imagine how much fun your lessons would be. I think your students must be very lucky, Susan. So coming back to this collection, how did you go about choosing from your hundreds of pieces? How did you choose these pieces?
I have over 300 on my website. So I've been a busy girl in about the last 3 years. It was super hard to decide, but you gave me some parameters of we want some of the different levels. And I have a method book for improvisation. So it's huge. And I improv. In church, the preacher says, I'm giving a sermon. I want you to play behind me. I said, what mood? He says, reflective. Got it. I use improvisation all the time, and I encourage my students to do it as well. So I want that represented. You mentioned about the Christmas song. I've got 2 lead sheet books. I've got a Christmas lead sheet, and I've got an easy lead sheet book. So I wanted that represented. I didn't even get to my ensembles. I've got multi-level ensembles, duets, trios, and various, but I just didn't have room in your collection.
No, that's right.
So there's lots more to discover, but I really wanted a mix too of clever, but also like slow and pretty lyrical. And I wanted some fast fun. You mentioned Black Knight's Rides. That's really fun.
Hot Pursuit as well.
Yeah. Ice Crystals was actually commissioned by Nicola Canton for her Other Pedals book over there, because it uses a soft pedal.
Ah, yes, I saw that. Una Corda was in there. Yeah, I didn't. I should have noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that's a gem. It's such a petite, beautiful description of. You haven't asked me what my influences or what inspires me, but I love movie composers. I grew up, listening to John Williams, Jaws and Indiana Jones and, Star Wars, strong melodies that really bring an emotion to you. And Hans Zimmer more recently, with the different dark sounds and stuff. And pedagogical people, Melody Bober, I teach a ton of her music because I think it does the same. I like my music to have melody that's strong. I want it to have an emotion. I don't necessarily talk to my kids about, we do, but dynamics, but is this happy? Is this sad? What do you feel? What kind of thing do you think is happening? What story do you hear in this song? And they play it so much more naturally when we do that. They really enjoy that. So yeah, I was trying to hit all of those spots in this collection. And of course, Hot Pursuit is I wrote a whole collection of jazz music influenced or inspired by different spy movies. And so Mission Intrigue reminds me of either The Impossibles or something, really funky jazz, hip chords. But it's really not that hard if you look at it because it's really a 12-bar blues.
I know. I started playing it. I'm like, this is a 12-bar blues. but it's cleverly disguised in there.
Yes. And there's a little chromatic little thingies.
Yeah, I
love
love
a lot
the
of technique
chromatic
in there.
Really love the chromatic movement. Rhythmically very cool. Oh, it's just, there's just so much fun. Like you've given us such a wonderful, just a big picture view of a little taster of what you do, which is just wonderful. And I'll ask you a little bit more about where teachers can find out about where to find you in a second. But I did want to ask, we've talked about this a little bit, but what would your top tips be in regard to encouraging for teachers to encourage more creativity or an interest in composing in their own students?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's some simple ways you can start with that. It doesn't have to be a composition lesson. The first thing I do is I encourage my students to be curious. If they're working on a song and they got it, but they don't really have it maybe all the way yet, and we're still working on it, what if you made it yours and made it different? Maybe you could change the dynamic. Maybe you could change the articulation. Just simple little changes where you make it your own. I think being curious is the first thing. Another thing that I like to do with my students that encourages them to think outside the box, I call it copy me. And like I said, I have 2 keyboards and I have an upright piano in my studio. So I'll go over to a keyboard and I'll tell them, okay, we're in C position. I'll play a pattern. And so we're ear training. They'll play it back. But as they get better at it, they said, well, stump Miss Bell now. Can you play a pattern that I won't figure out? And so guess what? You're improvising at that point. So that gets them, oh, look what I just did. And so it's not so scary. Another way you can encourage students to be creative and start improvising and stuff, I go over and I play just a chord progression, D minor, B flat, C major, D minor, simple. And I put them in D minor pentascale. I said, improvise, make up something that doesn't matter. If you want to play one note and just listen, how does it change when the chords change? Anyway, they start improvising and they really super like that a lot. They really get into that. And if they really get good at it, if they're older, I'd say, well, here's your left hand. Can you do it by yourself? And so we take turns and I'll play the melody. They do the left hand. That's kind of the crux of what my improv book is. And then once students start doing that, if they happen on a melody, encourage them to write it down. So you've got kind of all the little steps here. If it's not so scary then. Yeah,
I love that. Wonderful approach. And in Zen Garden, which is the improvisation activity that you've shared with us, it's just one page. You've got a prompt. Hold down the damper pedal as you freely move your hand around the entire piano keyboard. Play any black keys while you create a soothing Zen Garden. And then you've structured. You've given a little structure. Start by playing a low G flat in your left hand for your bass foundation. If it starts to fade, play it again at any time. And then in the right hand, play a repeated single note and stop and listen. And I did this before. I'm like, It's so simple, but so beautiful. And then you say, now play two notes together, third, seconds, fifth. And I ended up spending 5 minutes it's the simplest activity, Susan, but one that we kind of forget. If students haven't explored this, they're missing out, aren't they?
Well, in my improv book, I start from the very beginning. The book is written for teachers who have never taught improv, and it's written for students who don't know anything. So we start at the beginning and we build up to about early intermediate. The absolute first song and piece in there is to make a summer storm. There's no notes, but I do have a guided meditation you can listen to and play along with me. The first thing is make raindrops. I do this with beginners. They instinctively know how to make raindrops, just little ding, 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 What about thunder? So they love that. This Zen Garden, my dad is 80 and he actually loves this. He says he can sit down and play the Zen Garden just making things up. And everybody in the house just says, wow, that's so pretty when you play.
It's
and he says, that's
good.
my song.
And we're just doing our students such a disservice if they don't know how simple some of these things can be when we give them just a few prompts. So I just love that. So thank you again for sharing. I think that's great. I'd like to wrap things up a little bit. Last couple of questions. What advice would you give other budding teacher composers who might be listening? That's
a great question. I think it's never too late to start. I'm 61 and I'm really hitting my stride in the last 5 years. So I think it's just keep trying, be curious, listen to other people, listen to music. What music do you like? Look at the written page. What does it look like? How do you make it look better? Get a mentor. Maybe you're a composition teacher, but I have a fellow teacher friend here and I send her my music ahead of time before I publish it. And I said, teach it to your students. I teach it to mine. What do you see? What's not working? What is working? What do they like? So she gives me feedback. That's very helpful.
That's a great idea. Just having a buddy.
Yeah, have a buddy. And your kids will tell you, Miss Bell, that's terrible. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I'm sure that doesn't happen very often, Susan, let's be honest.
Well, I don't know. My kids are so spoiled. They think this is normal
Every teacher makes all their music up.
Yes. I had a little girl about 2 years ago and I wanted to write a special song for her. No reason in particular. I just wanted to do it. And I asked her, what do you like? She said, butterflies, because I have a little butterfly garden in my backyard and students like to walk around and look at it. And I said, okay, how about Butterflies for Jillian? And I wrote the song and I said, no, wait a minute. What do butterflies do? And she says, well, they flutter. They flutter around as they fly. And so that's where the little motive, dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee, in the left hand comes from. So I kind of jumped off. But, if you're a teacher and you want to write music, just try to be descriptive, just be curious and be yourself. And I think all those things will come, and then you just learn as much as you can.
And keep learning. You're clearly just enjoying the process of learning more, getting music out there, sharing more. I think it's just wonderful. And any advice to other composers who might be interested to contribute to a Top Music Sheets collection and your experience of that?
Oh, totally do it. I was unaware of the process or anything really about it until about 4 months ago. And then when you approached me, I thought, wow, this is the coolest thing ever, for your members, but for composers to get the word out. I just think and Albert, like I said, he was invaluable, taught me so much. I asked several questions. I said, can you send me more information about this so I can have it kind of as a guide? And he was very gracious to give me some materials to help me. I really appreciate his help and the opportunity just to be a little bit more of an international stage. It's very helpful.
That's great. Oh, it's been wonderful working with you. So you better tell everyone, where do they find all your amazing music?
Oh, thank you. So if it's an original or a public domain arrangement, you're going to find it at susanstaplesbellmusic.com. If it's a popular title like Top Gun or Old Time Rock and Roll or Grease Lightning or something like that, you'll find that at Sheet Music Plus. And you go on there, just search my name, Susan Staples Bell or Susan Staples, and it'll pop up. And I have 85 arrangements over there you can choose from.
Amazing.
I actually set up, if they come to my website, I've set up a Top Music promo code if they would like to do that. 20% off of $30. All they got to type in is Top Music. If they have any questions, they can send me an email. I answer them all the same day. I'm very responsive and want to help anybody the best I can.
Thank you so much. That is really generous of you. So if they spend $30 or more, they'll get $20 off with the coupon code TopMusic.
20% off.
Sorry, 20% off. That's fantastic. Great. We'll put that in our show notes and we'll make sure we link to your website as well, Susan. Thank you so much for joining me today. And again, huge appreciation for the collection.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion with Susan Staples-Bell. If you haven't explored her music, then why don't you come along and grab your free download of her collections as part of our Top Music Pro Lite membership. It's over at topmusicpro.com. If you want to find out more about our Top Music Sheets collections, then you can also head out to topmusic.co/sheets. Next week on the podcast, I'm very excited to be unpacking a topic that we get asked about all the time. It's about homeschoolers, and particularly how to attract homeschoolers. One of the big advantages of teaching people that are homeschooled is, of course, that you can generally teach them during the day. So you're not filling your schedule after school hours, which is when we all run out of time, and which is, to be honest, when we all don't necessarily want to teach all the time. So the homeschooling crowd is a great one to explore, but it can be really difficult to connect with. So let's give you some tips. That's next week on the show with the amazing Ginny Thorpe. Can't wait to share that with you. Until then, I'm Tim Topham and you've been listening to the Topcast. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.